James Lofton, Stanford grad, Hall of Fame wide receiver. I saw where I think he averaged 23 yards per catch one year in the NFL. You imagine if Lofton was playing now with these rules? He joins us now. James, how are you?
If I was playing now with these rules, they would have to put one more rule in. Don't hit the 56-year-old
man. But the way the wide receiver is now, I'm looking at these numbers, James. If we looked at your numbers that got you into the Hall of Fame 10 years from now, what do you think those numbers look like or would stack up to with these wide receivers today?
You know, as I watch the game, and we watch, these guys are fantastic athletes. The one thing that strikes me is how often they get hit. When you average a big number, you don't get hit as much. But when you're catching a 5- and 6-yard pass, you got to turn it upfield. So I don't even want to go down that road.
Yeah, but these guys are going to put up huge numbers. I look at Chris Carter, Tim Brown. I don't know if they get into the Hall of Fame, but if you're catching 80 or 90 balls, which is the norm, and you just do the math here, you're going to have a lot of guys with 1,000 catches or pretty close to that. And I wonder what it's going to do to other receivers who are still trying to get in, who played in a different era.
Well, I think what you do when you look at potential Hall of Famers, and this is kind of what I always think about, when a guy was at the peak of his career, a 5-year period, did you consider him one of the 2 or 3 best at his position? Did he play for championships? And you kind of tick those boxes off, and you kind of take the numbers out of it, almost like you would if you were looking at an offensive lineman. And I think when you're looking at Chris Carter, Andre Reed, and Tim Brown, it's yes with all those guys, but then the thing is, it's kind of not yet. And I think they all get in. I think they're all Hall of Fame worthy. And as you look, you know, at today's crop of guys, obviously Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, those guys are kind of the head of that. Let's not forget about Marvin Harrison. Maybe you're going to have another wing where you have a lot of wide receivers in it because that's the way it's gone. You don't have the running backs dominating the game the way that they used to.
All right, let me get to a couple of things here. I've called this Overreaction Monday. I've expanded it to Overreaction Week because I just saw Steve Mariucci say Robert Griffin III, most athletic quarterback to ever play the game. He's played one game, and while he is very athletic, I just want to let this play out, that we all of a sudden have to have a statement after week 1. And Andrew Luck, now they're questioning why they took Andrew Luck in Indianapolis instead of Robert Griffin III, or they let Peyton Manning go. What's the one overreaction you've heard this week that bothers you?
Well, I'm not sure about the overreaction on RG3. I think it would have been more accurate. The most commercials the guy has ever had before he started playing. So I think we can go with that one. The biggest overreaction, probably concern about the Green Bay Packers. And yes, it's my former team, and I'm concerned. I've watched the San Francisco game again, and what I don't see is I don't see that offensive hammer. I don't see that really tough guy stepping forward on their team. And it's funny, the toughest guy on their offense is Aaron Rodgers, and that's not always good. I saw receivers who weren't always blocking after the catch for their teammate, and they've got to find a way to get Cedric Benson loose. You know, you had him on the sideline, then you put in Randall Cobb. A lot of cute formations, but you've got to have a hammer when you play offensively.
Okay, finish this sentence. If the Packers start 0-2.
Oh, no!
Is that your answer?
Yes, that's my answer. Because, it could happen. Chicago's a very good team. So, this Thursday night game, if they start 0-2, you regroup, and it's a long week because of that Thursday game. They have to then sit there and watch everyone else play. But there'll be Dallas Cowboys were 0-2 years and years ago, almost 20 years ago, when Emmitt Smith held out, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So that's the one that people will always go back to and talk about that.
If you were a Packer fan, would you have a bigger concern about your defense or the fact that you don't have a great running game?
Well, I kind of like what Ted Thompson did defensively, and it may not bear fruit until the second half of the season because 6 young players that you're trying to integrate into that defense, there are changes. And young players think through things before they react. And so that's what happens the first half of the season. And so they'll play 8 games, and then they won't be freshmen anymore. They'll be sophomores.
He's James Lofton, Sunday Night Football analyst on Dial Global. He's got the Niners and also the Lions coming up. That's the NBC game. I've never seen a game, or at least the hype to a game, where we can't wait for the game to end to see the two coaches shake hands.
Well, even more so than that, because normally before the game, head coaches will chat at midfield. You know, they'll just be there and they'll kind of walk over to each other, shake hands, and they'll talk for 4 or 5 minutes. I want to see if that happens.
I don't think there's going to be any small talk.
And I want to see what their cornermen behind them are doing.
But didn't we have that with Belichick a couple of years ago?
Yeah, well, you had the little quick handshake.
Yeah.
But those were guys who had coached under him and left, and bad blood and all that. This started boiling last year when they played each other. And Jim Schwartz was going to call a timeout or something, or throw the red flag, and Harbaugh screamed at him, don't you know the rules? And it's funny because coaches are emotional. They say what's on their mind. I watched Jim last week. It looked like he was going to blow a gasket on a couple of the calls that the officials made. And so both these guys are very fiery, and their teams are very fiery. So hopefully it doesn't spill over into a penalty-laden game where the officials have to restrain players. But that's what I could see happening early on.
Let's see. If I gave you this question right now, if I put this across the board to the NFL analyst, you can if you gave the Colts a mulligan, they could keep Andrew Luck, they could draft Robert Griffin III instead, or they would keep Peyton Manning. How do you think that would work right now if you ask that question?
I think that all three of those teams are very happy with what they have. It's a growing process when you're playing quarterback. And before week 1, everybody was sold that the Colts had done the absolute right thing with Andrew Luck. He plays a very tough team on the road, and now there are some question marks. Let the process kind of play out, and when you draft a player as a general manager, as a coaching staff, you're thinking 2-3 years down the road. You're not thinking, week 1, did we do a good job? Week 2, on Wednesday at practice, did we do a good job? Let these players evolve.
Well, I remember when people were questioning that Carolina was making a mistake taking Cam Newton.
But, that's what, I guess that's what the pundits have to do. There are certain, what? I'll be honest with you. I like Ryan Leaf when he came out.
He won his first 2 games, James.
Ryan Leaf had a big arm.
Did you like him? Good. Did you like him over Peyton Manning when he came out?
I thought he was more athletic than Peyton Manning. And I think what that taught us is that these guys are not going to play basketball against each other. They're not going to do the home run derby. They're not going to do the superstars against each other. They're going to play quarterback. They're going to lead your team. And you're looking for an intangible that you can't quantify. You cannot quantify what makes a great quarterback a great quarterback. You want arm strength, you want vision, you want timing, there are a lot of different things that can go into the mix that create a great quarterback. Peyton Manning, that 7-yard run that he had last week, that was a thing of beauty. We all enjoyed that. And what's so funny is when you think about Archie Manning, he was really fast.
Archie was a great runner.
Now, what happened to his boys? Did they see Dad
beat
on
up?
The old clips get beaten up?
Yes.
Too much running?
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure that both Eli and Peyton were pretty good runners when they were in high school, but they didn't have to run.
I don't think Peyton.
We're going to throw the ball.
Yeah, I don't know if Peyton was. Eli might have been. Oh, by the way, James will be in the Sports Illustrated Nissan Heisman Tour tent at Stanford. He'll see McLovin there before the USC game. Can Stanford shock the world and beat USC, James?
Well, it won't be a huge shock because they've beaten them 3 times in a row. Now, and I say that not because they're favored to win or I'm going to pick them to win or whatever. Obviously I'm going to have my Stanford cap on. That's where I went to school.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be a total shock.
Are you calling for the upset, James?
Of course I'm calling for the upset. All the alums are calling for the upset. Wave the flag. Ted Koppel's music.
Yeah. That's our breaking news sounder. All right. When you see McLovin, at least be nice to him, James. Act like you're friends with him.
I am going to be friends with him.
Oh, you will?
Anybody named McLovin, you'd be friends with.
He didn't get into Stanford.
Well, I barely got in.
Yeah, but you were an athlete. McLovin wasn't. McLovin had to settle for Dartmouth.
Everybody who goes there is an athlete.
That's why McLovin did not get in. Have fun there, and
I will.
We'll be listening on Sunday Night Lions and the 49ers.
Okay. Always great talking to you, Dan.
Thank you, James. By the way, his Twitter handle is at Lofton80. James Lofton, the Sunday Night Football analyst on Dial Global. With who's he on with?
The play-by-play man?
Yeah. Dave Sims, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just listening the other night.
Yeah, Dave Sims. Yeah. All right.